Hello friends. So today a little bit of sharing about Atma Nirbharta. What is Atma Nirbharta? It sounds like a heavy word. It sounds like a very potent word also. So Atma Nirbharta, self-reliance, relying on oneself. That's the very simple way we can look at it. Or we can call Atma Nirbharta as self-sufficiency. So if you feel like, do leave some of your ideas about Atma Nirbharta in the comments, and that will also kind of spark my thinking process and sharing process. So Atma Nirbharta is two words actually coming together, Atma and Nirbharta. Nirbharta means depending on something, depending on someone. मैं किसी पे निर्भर हूँ, we say in Hindi language. I am dependent on someone, and that is Nirbharta. And Atma is the tricky part. Atma is the very ambiguous part now. What do we mean by Atma? So in certain contexts, it can be the country which is being referred to by the leader of the nation. That is Atma Nirbharta for the country. That is the country being whole, the country being very self-sufficient in its own ways, isn't it? So, but we want to understand this in different contexts, because when we use terms like Atma Nirbharta, they come from the spiritual core of our country, the spiritual core of this Indian tradition. And in the spiritual core, we have to understand what Atma Nirbharta means. And from there, we need to move into the we need to move into the practical dimensions and applying at different scale, at different dimensions later. That is applied spirituality. But first, what is the pure spirituality about the self, about the Atma? What is the science about the Atma, the self? What is it? And let's say this body is born, Floyd or whatever this body is called. It is born, it's going to die after 60, 70, whatever number of years, any time it can go away. And the same is true for everyone who's watching this live video. We are not going to live here forever. Maybe 80 years, 90 years, 100 years max, or maybe 100, 150 years also. Okay, but this form, this body is not going to last forever. At the same time, I also want to point out that this is true for all animals, for all beings on the planet. So, now the question is, what happens to this body? This gets recycled. I'm not talking about spirituality. I'm saying in very general terms, this body will get recycled. If I'm buried, the worms are going to eat my body, the mud is going to absorb the bones, etc., etc. A lot of stuff is going to happen. If I'm cremated again, the ashes will flow, they will serve as fertilizer or manure to the plants, and a lot of other stuff will happen. So everything is recycling. So this form cannot be called as the self, because this is just temporary, it is transient. It can be called as the self for regular day-to-day purposes, which is very fine. But, can we call this as the self in a very deep sense? No. It is not convincing that this body should be called as the self, or this form which we call as Floyd should be called as self. It doesn't make sense. Now, I started looking at Yoga Vasishta, which is one of the ancient texts, and I have some very small selected verses from this Yoga Vasishta Sar, which is the form of verses from the Yoga Vasishta. And there is a chapter which says meditation on the self. Hi Linda, hi Amay. Yes, most welcome everyone who's joining. And meditation on the self. Now, meditation on the self means they are trying to probably see what is the self, reflecting on who is the self. And the first shloka itself, the first verse itself is very interesting. It says, I, the pure, stainless and infinite consciousness beyond Maya, look upon this body in action like the body of another. Me, I is not this body. That is the very first verse. Then the mind, the intellect, the senses, etc. are all the play of consciousness. They are unreal and seem to exist only due to lack of insight. Again, this book, amazing, Yoga Vasishta. It's saying the mind, the intellect, the senses which I'm using are all the play of consciousness, but it is unreal. It's just a play. It's just fluttering. It's just appearing and disappearing. This mind, this intellect, my thoughts. What my thoughts were at the age of 12, I don't even know now. I hardly know. And it's just gone, and it's developed into a completely different animal. Then the third verse says, unmoved by adversity, a friend of all the world in prosperity, without ideas of existence and non-existence, I live free from misery. So, unmoved by adversity. So, this is something which is not affected. So, self, this body will get affected tomorrow if I don't have water, tomorrow if I don't have even small needs being taken care of. I am going to be affected. This body, this mind will get worried more than the body. Then the intellect, the senses, everything will get affected. Definitely. We are, at least, I am not enlightened to that level to say that I will not be affected at all. So, definitely it will be affected. So, what can be affected, my friends, is not the self, is not the Atma. So, let's go deeper now. Because we have to understand our own, spiritual core, which is from our own tradition. Rather than looking at answers from USA and the world around, we are never going to get answers from them. So, inactive am I, desireless, clear as the sky, free from hankering, tranquil, formless, everlasting and unmoving. This is the self. It is not something which is worrying, it is not something which is having desires, it's something very pure. This is what the Yoga Vasishta is indicating. I have now clearly understood that the 5 elements, the 3 worlds and myself are pure consciousness. Everything is Leela, everything is consciousness. How to see this? How to understand this? Not merely as a philosophy, but practically. I am above everything. I am present everywhere. I am like space. I am that which really exists. I am unable to say anything beyond this. So what is this that is pervading, all pervading, which is not affected by small things, which is not affected by death and birth, which is the recycling? What is this? Atma. This is what we call as Atma. Friends, Atma is not me, it's not Floyd, it's not Stan, it's not Linda, it's not Nikish, it's not Joshua. It is something which contains all of these appearances. It's like the ocean which has waves, but the waves are temporary. The ocean is always there. Okay, now so then the 7th verse I am coming to. Let imaginary waves of the universe rise or fall in me, who am the ocean of infinite consciousness. There is no increase or decrease in me. So nothing can increase me, nothing can decrease me, because plus infinity, minus infinity. You do anything, it will remain infinity. So something which is infinite, that is Atma. Atma is not my limited identity. Atma is truly that which is permanent. This is what our scriptures, that is what our ancient knowledge says, not just the scriptures, but the true ancient knowledge. How wonderful that in me, the infinite ocean of consciousness, waves of jivas, that is individual souls are called as jivas, arise, sport for a while and disappear according to their nature. So if it's a dog, it's going to die after 5-10 years. If it's a human, maybe probably life expectancy of 60, 70, 80 years. So Atma is something in which all this activity, all this play is taking place. You are getting spanked by your wife in this Atma. You are fighting in this Atma. You are playing with your dog in this reality called as the Atma. You are doing everything in this reality called as Atma. And it is just not visible. It's just beyond everything, and it contains everything. And as we say in Zen philosophy, nothingness, from nothing everything came. So the nothingness can also be described as everythingness, because it's not just blank and dry, it's something which is alive, which creates things. Okay, now let's look at the 9th verse on the meditations on the self. The world which has come into existence on account of my own ignorance has dissolved likewise in me. The world which has come into existence because of my ignorance, because I am criticizing, because I am looking at the news, I have created this entire large picture of the world. I now directly experience the world as supreme bliss of consciousness. When I withdraw from all of that, when I converge my consciousness, none of this exists. It's like the Zen koan where they say, if a tree falls in a forest, does it make a noise? Because if it makes a noise, who listens to it? So can it really be classified as noise? So think about it. When a tree collapses in the forest, does it make a noise? Think about this. I prostrate to myself who am within all beings. The ever-free self, abiding as inner consciousness. I prostrate to myself who am within all beings. So everyone we say Namaste, because everyone there is this all-pervading consciousness, the Atma, the God. And this is the beautiful teaching that we receive. So if you have listened to me in the last 5-10 minutes, you see that Atma is not just this limited identity. It's not just me. It's not just the country. It's not just the... It's something very deep. And then this deep tattva, we can bring it out to the level of my family. I can bring it to the level of my country. I can bring it to different levels. And I can talk about it. I can extrapolate it. Or I can kind of bring it to that scale, if you understand what I'm saying. But deep down, at the pure level, how do we experience this Atma? This Atma is creating all your reality, and yet all this reality is just imaginary. It's Maya, as we call it. It's all imaginary. What you're seeing right now is imaginary, because the form which is seeing, whether it's Linda or Stan or anyone, the form which is seeing is again temporary, and the form which is being seen, Floyd, is again temporary. So think about these things. It's really very, very, very interesting that the whole existence is just a play. It's just Leela. And I always tell people that just understand two words, Shunya and Leela, and you can understand spirituality, Indian spirituality. Shunya is nothingness. Leela is the play that comes out of this nothingness. But this play is not real. So, my friends, how do we experience this? So I want to take you to a very practical experience of this, very practical experience. And I want you to observe your body. Just observe your body with eyes closed. Just observe your body with... observe your body with your eyes open or closed, whatever. Just look at your body and check whether the same body as it is, was it the same body that you had 10 years back or 20 years back, or as a child, definitely this body was different at some point, isn't it? So the body is not the self. The body is not the self. So now let's observe our thoughts. Check what thought is going on inside your mind. Are you thinking about this FB live video? Are you thinking about your girlfriend or boyfriend? Are you thinking about the coronavirus? What are you thinking about? What is the thought process in your mind? And was this thought process present 6 months ago? Was it relevant 6 months ago? Was the thought process that you're currently entertaining, was it relevant 6 months ago? If it was relevant 6 months ago, go 6 months behind, 1 year ago. Was it relevant 1 year ago? Was it relevant 2 years ago? Just keep on going back. Now, as part of this exercise, I want you to check what you're feeling right now. Are you feeling happy? Are you feeling sad? Are you feeling bored with this talk? Are you feeling scared about something that's gonna happen? Are you feeling guilty about something? Whatever you're feeling, just check. What are you feeling inside? What are you feeling inside? Check. So what you're feeling inside, now check whether it was the same yesterday. Did you have the same feeling in the same form, in the same proportion yesterday? Did you have the same feeling in the same form, in the same proportion 1 month back? Did you have the same feeling in the same proportion 6 months back? Think about it and check what your heart says, yes or no. If your answer is no, then again, we are not the mind, we are not the thoughts, we are not the feelings. So what are we? Take your attention on something that is not the thought, something that is not the body, something that is not the feeling. Try it. Try taking your attention to the space without any effort. Let the thoughts be there, let the feelings be there, let the body be there. But see something which is beyond all of these. See the space holding all of these. See the envelope that is holding the body, the thoughts, the feelings. Start seeing that. It may be helpful if you close your eyes. If you close your eyes, it may be helpful for you to see that space which is beyond body, beyond mind, beyond feelings. I'm not telling you to stop the body or stop the mind or stop the thoughts or stop the feelings. No. Just observe what is containing, what is beyond and containing these thoughts, these feelings. Where are they arising from? It's very simple. When you start doing this with your eyes closed, you start seeing a blank space, a curtain of sort of darkness, dimness in front of your eyes. But this is actually not darkness that you see when your eyes are closed. It is actually the light of 1,000 suns. Surya Koti Samaprabha. This is the light of 1,000 suns which the rishis had described. Because all the light, all the colors, they ultimately merge, they ultimately dissipate, they ultimately dissolve in this darkness that you're seeing in front of your eyes, which is not a darkness, which is a light, which is Noor, which is called Noor-e-Ilahi, which is called Surya Koti Samaprabha, the light of 1,000 suns. It's a warm feeling when you look in front of your eyes, when your eyes are closed. What you see is very warm, it's very bright in a different sense. It's very warm, it's very soothing. And as you keep immersing into this state which is thoughtless, which is emotionless, you will start finding that you are experiencing something which is bigger than any orgasm. It is actually described as the feeling of 1,000 orgasms happening at the same time. One cannot even imagine that. 1,000 orgasms happening at the same time. And yet, as we dissolve inside, beyond thoughts, beyond feelings, we start experiencing this. Gradually, we start feeling this inside us, practically. And Atma Nirbharta is living in this space which has no judgments, which has no thoughts, which has no biases. And in this space, we operate from the cosmic intelligence. In this space, we operate from what we can call as truly soul-centered living. Soul-centric living is Atma Nirbharta. Relying on the self, the true self. Which contains all the pleasures in the world, which contains all the appearances in the world, which contains all the play of the world, and yet it contains nothing. Absorbing this paradox only keeps making us silent and more silent. It starts making us converge to a point where we are just a center, a nucleus. And there is no, it's just a feeling of space and space and space. And yet there is no physical space, yet there is no physical time. There's only a sense of spaciousness, there's only a sense of eternal existence. Atma Nirbharta. This is the experience of Atma Nirbharta, my friends. At the deepest, pure spiritual level, then you can bring it to all aspects of life in a very beautiful way. So if you practice this exercise with me, I would recommend that you encourage your friends, encourage your family to experience this the way I've shared it with you, and definitely you will see that you will understand the true meaning of Atma Nirbharta. You will understand truly what is soul-centric living. And of course, all of us are in the process of moving towards perfection. We have not mastered it, none of us have, but we are moving towards it. So I hope you enjoyed this little bit of sharing and demonstration about Atma Nirbharta in the context of pure spirituality. Thank you everyone for joining. Cheers.